Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Pronago bringing you another Cause Monarchy cast, and we've got a very exciting Terran versus Terran today from Weekend Wage number 16, which, if you guys didn't know, so we do this event where, for our wonderful overhaul, spin-off game built in Starcraft 1's engine that technically you would call a mod, but it's so expansive that nobody in the right mind can only call it a mod. It's its own game at this point. We have pro players like HonMonO from StarCraft 2 and Siki from StarCraft 1 regularly playing in our events, including in this very Weekend Wage. And we have the concept of a Weekend Wage. It's basically a bi-weekly event. Twice a month we gather together, we gather all of our homies, and we say, let's do some gaming. And we basically just play a bunch of 1v1s. It's a double elimination bracket, but it's best of ones until the top 4 games. The games that decide, first, second, third, and fourth placements. Those games are all best of 3, and so that's a grand final, lower final, upper final, and I guess you could say the final elimination match before the lower final. And so this one was one of our openers. So this is very beginning, the earlier stages of the tournament, and we are in, of course, a best of 1, and it's a TVT. So how long could this video be? Well, you guys already know the answer to that question. I actually don't know the exact length of this game, but I'm assuming it's going to be a good one because I was told on good authority that this is one of the bangers of the event. So HonMonO in the bottom right is our Fern Green Terran, hailing from South Korea, and his opponent from Hungary is KutyamCsupan, who sometimes I like to call Chupan, like I'm Italian or something, because I am. But he is not Italian, so I can't really call him that. I mean, I can because I'm Italian, but it doesn't really work in the same way. It would be like an Italian man trying to talk to a Hungarian guy and then getting his name wrong, which I'm sure that never happens in European history. That's never occurred. Anyway, he's the Magma Terran in the top left, and both players are going to be going for the Fulcrum first. I've been told that I think it was Arbuz described it best was that the early Vulture wars that you can get into in TVT are like meth biker gang wars or something like that. Anyway, it was really amusing when I read something to that effect, and yeah, I mean, as iconic as the Vulture is, there might be something that we want to see if the meta can expand in a different direction than that. HonMonO already going to be playing a little off meta here with his Goliath play, going for 2 Goliaths as his opening units. I mean, Vultures just don't do damage to Goliaths here, right? Like, they can't contest in the same way. The lobotomy mines are a cute little move here, but actually I kind of like that HonMonO just right-clicks the lobotomy mines for the most part. I think on that last one he could have just right-clicked the Vulture, because then Kutyam probably would have lost it. Now he goes on to lose it again, but that was an unforced error, right? Kutyam didn't have a need to lose it there. So the only one connection there on the lobotomy mine, as you can see what it does, is basically what it says on the tin. And he's trying to go ahead and just clear them, and he is going to be successful in doing so. A little bit of chip damage here and there from the Vulture, but realistically speaking, you can't outrange the Goliath in a practical sense due to the Vulture's, the way that the Vulture actually works. Now, a couple Cyclops have been made. Remember, the production rate is higher for Kutyam. And look at this, his actual surviving Vulture gets in to deny the Ministry in the middle of its construction. Another Goliath is going to finish up pretty soon, so that shouldn't matter too much. But it looks like HonMonO wants to make a push with his opening 3 Goliaths. And first Vulture goes down. Okay, the other one hasn't even laid any mines yet. Oh, that's kind of ugly. HonMonO now has to go up against only 4 Cyclops, which can deal some pretty consistent splash damage, and the Goliath is a bit of a slow unit that has to stop for a little bit because of that attack wind-up versus ground targets. So the Gatling guns, you need a little bit of effort here, and you can actually see that the Cyclops are doing a lot better than they really have any right to be, partially due to the fact that HonMonO isn't just kind of forcing the issue. But back at home, he's got his expansion going, and the Cyclops count is starting to dwindle. You can see the Goliaths sinking their proverbial claws into them pretty nicely there. But yeah, at this point, it looks like the Goliath attack has been routed by Cyclops, no less. Kutyam definitely showcasing a little bit of stutter step there. He did lose a lot of the early Vultures for free, or about free, as free as he can get. And so HonMonO did get up to some early shenanigans there, but overall I would say that he's got his expansion up, he's only got the 1 Fulcrum, still hasn't scaled his production just yet. Ministry halfway done for Kutyam, and of course down by a considerable amount of workers at this stage in the game. TVT, once Phalanx come out, the siege tank equivalent, is notoriously difficult to finish people with, just like at StarCraft 1 in that respect. But I also feel like maybe in these early game shenanigans, there's a lot of play to be had with what HonMonO is doing with the Goliaths. And I mean, I just don't think people would expect you to go into Walker Wars in the beginning of the game. This already looks very different than a lot of TVTs I've seen, where like one player is forcing the issue with Goliaths, and so the counter is apparently to make Cyclops. I never would have thought that, but it makes sense. The stutter stepping is good. One of those other Goliaths is likely to go down here in the aftermath of this little push as soon as Kutyam just attack moves it. Could just send the healthy one out after it, I suppose, and try to repair the other guy later. Yeah, he's mass repairing this one. So that's a pretty smart move. This Cyclops is basically going to be run around, and one thing that this still accomplishes overall... HonMonO. One thing this still accomplishes overall is it defangs the push. HonMonO can no longer move across the map and attack, so Kutyam's pretty comfortable here. Getting his 4th Fulcrum, just spamming out a bunch of Cyclops. He'll be safe against anything that comes his way. The throughput of HonMonO's production was so constrained by the 1 Fulk expand build that even got a little bit slowed by that, stray Vulture going in. That also felt a little bit like HonMonO not expecting that particular move, but Kutyam finding a way to slow things down a little bit. I didn't give too much background on Kutyam. I told you guys about HonMonO, but if you're not aware, Kutyam is one of our premier grinders in Cosmonarchy. He's played over 1,000 games easily in his time, and he's not even a year old in terms of his time. Yeah, he's a baby. He's a newborn. Well, a newborn Cosmonarch. He's not even a year old in terms of his tenure as a player. So it does feel like he's still got a lot to learn, still got a lot to improve on, but he has just bona fide, like, you can't deny that he has improved a lot, and who would be surprised that he did. Managed to try to hold his own in a group of Acropolis 4 where, he had the first qualification blues, right? Where you're like, ah, man, I've got Hamster and Shopkeeper Dog to deal with in my group. Are you kidding me? So he really, his specialist matchup was probably TVP at the time with the Goliath meta, and he didn't get a chance to play against any Protoss at all. So didn't quite strut his stuff in the way that he's now doing even in TVT. Of course, Terran versus Ascozi, in theory, is a Terran-favored matchup, but he didn't quite have the right navigation, and that's a really big skill mismatch there between him and Shopkeeper Dog. And then, of course, Hamster, I mean, Kutyam played his heart out in that group, I'm telling you, man. The games against Hamster looked like, oh, man, he has a chance, he can do stuff, and then it just didn't ferment. So, no big deal at the end of the day. It is his first time in Acropolis. I'm sure we'll see him again. But, props to him for qualifying through the upper bracket, or through the first gauntlet, I should say. Lower bracket over Sausage. So that was very entertaining, that series. Went all 5 games. So a lot of history here for Kutyam in a short amount of time. Now, HonMonO is going to be going for double star pad after scaling up his production of mech units. He's mass repairing all of his Goliaths individually, which is a very cool sight, as well as making sure his anchor doesn't get too toasty there. And I do like that the player with the more mobile chaff, in this case Kutyam, is standing in front of the base. I was actually going to comment that I was talking about how Kutyam was feeling pretty safe, pretty chill, but that only is true for maybe 2 to 3 minutes, and after that you do need to get across the map. But I was busy waxing philosophical about other things and discussing the historicity of Kutyam, the historic nature of his play, and wanted to give you guys a little bit of a background on that. So I just decided to talk about that a little bit later on. Now, the Masonry will just blow up here due to the Cyclops. So that's a little bit of a, oh, damn, I can't quite just chase and mass repair my units in the same way. But HonMonO going for the double gas base and immediately laying down another Ministry with the intention of taking 6 o'clock. So this could be a very formidable move here. Kutyam already navigating around. He set up a siege line in the middle of the map, which is going to make it pretty hard for HonMonO to move through the lowest, the quickest way to your opponent, right? The straight line. That path of least resistance now has a lot more resistance. Now, unfortunately, the Cyclops are going to be offered up to the gods here. They will not be able to get any damage done or even really much scouting other than to confirm that the third base is here and that there are some workers transferred over immediately. 10 worker advantage for HonMonO, but he is a little bit behind on mining minerals from this base. He's quicker on the gas. Kutyam has his own lower ground base, and he's adding more and more fulcrums, making more and more Phalanx. Now, one thing to point out, we already have star pads here for HonMonO going for mass and seal, and I have a feeling that with only 1 star pad being constructed, Kutyam is vulnerable to air. It's vulnerable to, 6 to 8 Wraiths, just, a couple of salvos of them being thrown down there. So, a bit of a Phalanx trade initially here, but the Ant Seals scramble to their position. A Vulture just draws all that fire because HonMonO hadn't kept the right-clicking going. He does need to get his Goliaths underneath the Ant Seal ball, I feel like, or vice versa, move the Ant Seals over the Goliaths. Because you can only protect so many shots with Ant Seals. And now, HonMonO maybe struggling a little bit into the Kutyam siege line which continues to advance. He, wisely pairs off one Anseal to just keep vision of what's going on here, but all of his other Anseals weren't quite clumped up on top of the Phalanxes as they needed to be, and he is just walking into death repeatedly with those Phalanxes. So this is one of the more deranged ways that I've seen Phalanx fights go. Typically, they don't quite do it this way. I am exceedingly impressed that this is a pool wet noodle fight with in slow motion. That's what this is right now. This is like a Warcraft 3 fight or something, except it's like really clumsy. Well, he's gonna clear a lot of Masons, but again, he already had a worker lead by a considerable margin, so it doesn't matter as much. I mean, he's losing a lot of Phalanxes for the permission to. Now, his Goliaths are wrapping around. They could easily come back into this position and see what else they can do. Does look like this Phalanx should get another shot off. Only 3 kills at the end of the day, so not terrible there for HonMonO, and he still maintains 15 workers in advantage. Now, think about if he had 6 to 8 Wraiths and the Goliaths were off, I don't know, breakfast at Tiffany's or something, and then they weren't really doing anything. So definitely could have been a better trade for HonMonO. It started off looking real awkward, real rough for Han, and then Kutyam just decided to path into the base. Now he's doing the same thing with his Goliaths. I do feel like he could have waited a little bit more to see if HonMonO wanted to do a cheeky move out, but I do like committing a couple of the Goliaths into the mineral line so that the friendly fire deals even more damage to the Masons. And this would be even worse in the modern most recent version of the game, because the Phalanx the Phalanx siege mode has even more splash radius now. So the reason I made that change wasn't to buff them. It was actually to say they need to do more friendly fire. That's more thematic. So hope you guys are ready for that. Now, Kutyam's once again trying to deploy. Vultures have been indexed into here for HonMonO to draw some fire and to make it so that the Phalanxes are a little bit less at risk. Problem is they're all clumped up over here, right? So they are taking a lot of damage. Now, he's finally going to lift off that 4th Ministry, head over to 6 o'clock, where some Vultures can clear that Cyclops. But it's worth pointing out here that Valkyries are being made to clear the Anseal stack. Scrapyard is being added with more Fulcrums put down by Kutyam. So soon we will have a little bit of a different tech choice here. And the production hasn't changed at all for HonMonO. He's just now put down his Atlas a few minutes ago, or a few seconds ago. And so he will be going up to Tier 2. That's going to be his move. But we have entered into the awkward teenage years of TVT, I think. That's what this looks like. So the Anseals are being heckled by some Goliaths. Valkyries, obviously dealing splash damage, are going to be able to break through the shielding provided by the Anseal quite a bit. You can see the Goliath trying to be targeted down by that Phalanx. It looks like it will be traded, so there it goes. And some Anseals go down as well as the Valkyries arrive. And yeah, there's no anti-air here for HonMonO, so he really can't do anything with his Anseals, right? He cannot defend them at all. He's got to... Honestly, there's not even like watchdogs or anything in here. I guess there's 2 Goliaths in the anchor. Kutyam trying to run into friendly fire range with his Goliaths. And the Vultures are now navigating around the map. They have done a bit of a doozy onto the mineral line here at the 3rd base, but most of the workers end up evacuating to the natural. Now they can reset as the Vultures try to claim some map control for HonMonO. I'm glad somebody is finally showing us that you can go into Vultures in the mid-game and actually use them to your success. Oh, no! I think they're gonna... Oh, never mind. One more died. Well, Kutyam's happy to start pressuring this position. The containment is still set up, right? Like, mantles are being added for, I guess, cataphracts, but surely you need, like, starports or something in this situation. You got the double gas base over here. You can even put reservoirs on it to cap it. Matadors are sighted by the Vultures, and some tank mode Phalanxes are going to be able to clear this position. I don't think Kutyam's even going to lose another worker. Yeah, it doesn't look like it. So, with that being said, the Ministry has to float elsewhere because the Phalanxes came up and just sort of said, nah, you ain't landing here. Mason's still being rallied into their death. And Valkyrie's standing vigil in case there's any Anseals. We got the new Valkyrie model from Balathal. It received some updates, I believe, after this game. So we got the new look, first time new look on it. Hey, we even have a new Trojan now too, but we don't see it yet. A little bit out of time, out of angle for it. So 4 kills on the Phalanx with a drop, not bad. The 1 watchdog here for HonMonO helping him out. Also citing that Tier 2 is on location here is definitely a big one. These Vultures still being a bit of a nuisance. More of them have even joined up, and the Matadors are just going to try to give chase. Force HonMonO to spend all of his APM microing them, which actually, it might be a tactic. I mean, it takes resources to make the Matadors, obviously, but it also denies your opponent the focus resource if they're forced to sort of micro back or whatever. There is something to that, maybe. Taluses have been indexed into by Kutyam, which is very cool. He had the quarry, and that is very, very nice. Oh my god, he's bombing Matadors out of the Trojan. He forgot to unload there, unfortunately, but that is going to do a number on HonMonO's worker count. Now he's going to try to do counter raids with the Vultures, but there's so many Phalanxes, so many Matadors, flame tanks, and regular siege tanks. Well, I guess they're not regular tanks. Whatever. We don't really have regular tanks in the default faction of Terran for Cosmonarchy. Not until like super late, I guess, if you eventually the Cuirass might be like a treaded vehicle instead of the Walker that it is currently. Then maybe you can call it that. But either way, we're looking at a lot of mech here for HonMonO. And as long as the Cataphracts aren't leading the charge, they can put out some pretty consistent damage even against sieged Phalanxes. Anseal's covering the Vultures, which, unless you're targeting manually with your Phalanxes, you will be broken here. Without being able to do any damage to the more damage-dealing backline. The Valkyries end up fleeing. This base was taken by HonMonO after 6 o'clock was, set up. And the cliff advantage plus the sieged position here makes it really untenable to try to fight. Again, you make like 2 Wraiths and you'd be fine, but HonMonO is stuck to Anseal production this whole time. So very diligent in that, going back up to 8 Anseals with 2 more on the way. He's going to cite all of the Phalanxes that are not sieged yet. More of them are on the way. So we've got 12 Phalanxes here, by the way, one of them not sieged. And this is going to be a really hard base to siege into. I mean, surely we don't just walk into all of them, right? And then all the Anseals lose their shields to protect versus the Phalanx shots, and the Valkyries have a free reign to just go in as much as they like. Now, obviously, that's not going to last forever. The energy regen does kick in rather quickly here for Cosmonarchy, but I'm waiting to see whether or not we are going to end up in a dicey situation here for HonMonO's army. He's walking around, and, well, Kutyam's offering him up a few options here, but look at the artillery bombing. I mean, the thing is, Kutyam's only made the Phalanx, right? So he is weak in other areas, but HonMonO has to go and find them. This has been one of the more deranged TVTs that I've seen in a good while, based on that opener, but we're starting to get into that territory where Kutyam is going to be worried about his situation. Phalanx is just getting bombed from left, right, and center. The mortars are clearing HonMonO's army, but the map control has definitely flipped. And remember that the base count is even right now, with 12 o'clock and the bottom left being the exceptions there, or the counter bases. Oh, the Anseal stack, no! Oh, dear. Well, if a couple of moving shots might have helped out there, but he ends up losing 1 Valkyrie to clear the one of the Anseals, or a couple of the Anseals here. Cataphracts and Anseals are seeing that, oh wait, these Phalanxes are still here. This is bad for HonMonO. He needs to do something about this, surely. Oh, he actually forces an unsiege, but yeah, that just baits him in closer, right? So, gonna end up losing his Catus if he's not careful. Got so many Atlases, and so many Taluses, and finally an Atlas is gonna go down for Kutyam as well. So that's the big thing, right? Like, the tech development here is way better for HonMonO. Even though his economy might not be as good as it used to be. 2 more Matadors going to get unloaded. No, HonMonO does not have to worry about that. Kutyam doesn't get the unload off. Treasury in the top right. Cestus to add a little bit of detection, and I'm supposing this is actually like anti-Wraith, except for the fact that there's no anti-air units here. You know, you detect the Wraiths there with the Cestus. It is a detector, but I don't know. Kutyam needs a pause. You know, natural things like 18 minutes into the game. I gotta use the bathroom, dude. But they're all good now. Yeah, this little upraised position, the Anseals are already out of energy. So how is HonMonO actually going to siege into this position? I guess if you're just stubborn and you force the issue anyway, you might be able to do it. We're definitely seeing never-before-seen tactics of who cares about the Phalanx, just fight them. And it's kind of working. Right? That's a position that I think maybe Kutyam could have written off in his head based on the intimidation factor. He's got 17 more Phalanx where that came from, 5 on the 12 o'clock high ground. There's been a lot of softening of some of these, Phalanxes, but and there's no more like Vultures or anything like that, Vultures, Goliaths for a front line. But at the very least, I think HonMonO can still deny the 12 o'clock. Treasury over here allows these bases to be taken. Cataphracts can shoot up, so these Taluses are in danger, and he is going to need to evacuate that. He set up another base on the other side, which has been scouted by HonMonO, and 2 empty Trojans are returning to base. It doesn't look like they had anything in them. Maybe they were just rallied out by mistake. These Taluses are going to find stuff over here. They can start building Sentinels. They do construct structures, so... Yeah, he's putting down Watchdogs. And yes, indeed, building sentinels. What an amazing move, honestly. So he starts to garrison the 9 o'clock base. Anseal's hovering over here to see what's going on. The rest of the stack is indeed moving. You kind of herald the arrival of the stack if that's happening. Only 3 cataphracts were dispatched to deal with the situation. Sentinels are pretty powerful, so let's see how well that works out for him. Looks like he's denied a couple of them from being built. I like that the watchdogs are here as well, just in case, you know, kill a few free Anseals. Oh, but he doesn't finish some of the sentinels there, so he's only going to have 3 of them at the end of the day. Still might be enough to do some good damage, but yeah, you can see some of them are being absorbed by the move there. Now, 12 o'clock does end up getting canned here, and HonMonO will take the Ministry out. The Cataphracts will finish the job there. So the Phalanx has come up to try to at least punish the army, and they will bomb a couple of these Katas out. Obviously, they're not really laser giraffes, laser hippos maybe, I don't know what you would call them. They are going to be able to do some good damage, and they will even clear the Valkyries to defend the Anseals. Now, at the same time, we have a bit of an attempted attack here at the 9 o'clock. It's not going to work out for HonMonO, though. So that Phalanx will go up in smoke. These Taluses are idle here and should probably get back to mining at 12 or something. Anseal's resetting after the Valkyries almost destroyed them all. And 8 more Phalanxes in production. He's still got Trojans. He's going to load up the Matadors. Or he's going to try to anyway. It looks like he's going to be content with that for now. What's he planning on doing with Tier 2? He's got a big bank. Is he just going to go straight into Daedala? Oh no, his Trojans got caught! Oh, he's only got 1 Matador left. That's so sad. He's almost got Daedala money. Almost got Daedala money, guys. Phalanx is set up at 6 o'clock still. He could stamp out this base. That would definitely help him out. Who's even ahead right now? Yeah, Daedala goes down. Okay, so I guess we better strap in for a couple more minutes here because this TVT is not over. Talus is caught in the middle of the map. Kutyam definitely, I feel like he's sparking and, you know, like oil is you know, bubbling over from his containment. You know, if he's a robot, if he's one of those steampunk automatons, he is at his limit trying to keep up with everything. Now, the Cataphracts are in a vulnerable stack, clumped up. The Phalanx is just rallying into death. It looks like the 1 Matador that was dropped at some point. I don't know where it is. It looks like it hasn't even been dropped, but it will be cleared by that Kata. We have a bit of a tank push, forcing HonMonO away, forcing HonMonO back. Of course, it couldn't quite break this position as he's at the front gates with some of these Phalanxes that he sent across. So I didn't think I would ever say this in my life, but Kutyam has been tank flanking, Phalanx flanking, and now HonMonO is going to try to force the issue at another base. We got Watchdogs and Sentinels being built, but in small numbers, so not likely to help out too much. That Phalanx ends up deploying to get a shot off, but that's it. He was railroaded into a bad spot. Talus now floating over to the top right position where HonMonO's making a ministry. And yeah, I mean, most of the Phalanxes are still actually intact here. They just haven't been put into a good position. Now, a lot of blackjacks have been made. I think you mostly waypoint those into bases. You don't bother trying to attack the army head-on about that. And he even has a couple of Anseals lost in the middle. Dude, this is a chaotic game. Surely the first purchase is a couple diadems to secure your position after you finish the Daedala. Surely, right? But I don't know if it much matters. He's actually losing a lot of ground. He's lost his double gas low ground base. He's going to end up losing this base, it looks like. Only a few Phalanxes, one of which is not in siege mode, and only 2 Sentinels were made. So, yeah, really not likely to be able to clutch this one up, despite everything. Sentinel getting a couple of consolation frags at the end there, but yeah, he's forced the Sentinel to cancel the Ministry here, but there's a couple of Vultures and Katas sent up to that location, and the Kata's even chasing off some of the Taluses that are on autopilot. They could be mining from that reservoir the whole time, by the way. I'm kind of impressed he made so many Taluses without even doing that once in either spot, as far as I caught. Some Phalanxes are going to come over here to try to maybe either counterpunch over in this position at the 3 o'clock spot, or maybe crunch the army, the little bit of army that's up here. We're in surprisingly low eco, and a diadem is being constructed, by the way, so we will get to see that in action. HonMonO Valkyrie watching over 6 o'clock. Make a Wraith, HonMonO. You just kill all of the Phalanxes or force them to unsiege and go away. I can't believe he still hasn't done that. Moving up to 12 o'clock now, we got the Katas doing their best to arrive. Oh, he's got to cancel out that diadem, but this one's at least almost done. The crown jewel of the Terran arsenal is a huge artillery structure, the Ion Cannon by any other name, and it will finish up. But it's not actually within range, right? So if we look at it, it can shoot to cover about half of the choke point there. And of course, it can also cover quite a bit of distance over here. So that's what it's meant for. Now he's building another one kind of next to it. He's still being stamped out. Everything is going to be coming down to his counter push here. The Blackjacks to buy time and maybe shut down that double gas base. Phalanxes are now having the Masons pulled against them. Looks like a couple of them still in tank, or a good number of them actually still in the tank mode there. So that's a smart move from HonMonO. Blackjacks will be caught, however, so that Ministry will not go down, and the worker count is mostly unscathed. Cestus and Watchdogs floating from that third base are now under duress. The Ministry lifts off. Maybe some of those catters will still go down. He built a Triton. It died without casting its ability, but he still built it, and I appreciate that. Thank you. He's got another one. Look. It's a cool-looking walker. Now, the Phalanxes are going to go ahead and be cleaned up here. And that feels like the last chance for Kutyam to do anything. He's floating his diadem into enemy territory. Well, at least there will be this. I don't know if HonMonO's seen... Surely he's seen the diadem before, because one of his first games was an 8-player FFA or whatever on Oil Australia. So I think he figured it out. Excuse me. We have the Ant-Seals and, of course, the Cataphract trying to flee the scene of the crime. But yeah, the Diadems are going to go ahead and fire their shots here. They drop the beacons, and then... oh yeah, I thought something phantomly killed it, and then I saw the Phalanx next to it. I was really confused about that. Yeah, I was like, is there a bug? Does the Hammerfall beacon always deal damage or something? Not quite. All right, Phalanxes have to deploy, and it does look like Kutyam's ready to tap out. His last base discovered here by that Mason scout might have been what did him in, but definitely realizing that all he's got to his name are diadems. He can't afford any production at Tier 3. Well, that was a cool Tier 3 TVT from Kutyam, Tier 2 TVT, of course, from HonMonO. I never really needed the diadem or the Daedala. But I will say, at least we got to see that in action. I'm really surprised by how long that game went, how deranged the tank fights were. In the early stages of the game. If this game surprised you, please let me know. Please tell me that I'm not the only one who is perplexed by the moves made by the players here, but they were locked in combat, and it was cool to see that it lasted that long. Props to Kutyam for going that deep into TVT against HonMonO, and of course showing us the beautiful diadems. I guess that's Terran supremacy for you. GG. We'll be back tomorrow for another Cosmonarchy cast. Stay tuned.